Hey guys, I really was struggling to understand what's going on, what the hell's going on the chessboard, especially at the beginning of the game that I'm about to show you. Liren playing with the white pieces in game 4 of the World Chess Championship match went for some weird stuff. This is really weird, and even Stockfish, the almighty chess engine, could not help me make sense of it. But I then watched streams by several prominent chess players, commentators like Judith Polgar, the strongest ever female chess player of all time, with Grandmaster Robert Hess, like Grandmaster Anish Giri, who actually had lots of insights on the opening because he was the first who faced this strange stuff. I watched some streams in Russian, I watched some streams in English, and I have a lot to digest and to share with you. So bear with me. Let's go. Let's watch this the recap of this game. So Liren is playing with the white pieces. In the first game, he opened up with e4 in the first game where he had white. That is game 2. But today he went for knight f3. Actually, many people predicted that he will go for either knight f3 or d4, and probably he will be surprising Gukesh even more in this match. If we remember the match between Nepo and Din, Din played lots of creative stuff, probably generated by his team. In particular, Richard Rapport is a key member of his team, and he's known as the very creative chess player. So knight f3 by itself is not a very creative move, but you will see what happened next. So d5, all standard. If white goes d4, then we get the typical d4 positions, but here he goes e3. A rare move, but here also anything can happen. White can go d4 later on and transpose. We will see what happens. Knight f6, normal move by Gukesh, and now b3. So this is the setup that's often played, for example, by Hikaru Nakamura online, by many players. Actually, Magnus often plays this in Blitz. But those people usually put the bishop on b2. What happened in the game will probably be a big surprise for most of you guys who are not like 27 plus 100 rated players. So first of all, after b3, well, the idea is to develop the bishop like this most of the time. Sometimes go c4, sometimes d4, but often this pawn does not leave this initial square. This is like the Queen's Indian defense, but with colored reverse. So with colors reversed. I mean that very often black chooses such a setup against white. For example, goes like this, and b6, and this is the Queen's Indian defense. Well, sometimes other move orders are used, but you get what I'm saying. So here white is playing this cagey setup, not going forward. None of white's pawns or pieces have crossed the Rubicon, have gone close to the center, but it has its own spin, this system. Now black goes bishop f5, and this is like the reversed London system. The bishop is well placed here, then black usually goes e6 and h6 to hide the bishop on h7 if need be. So here bishop e2, and black goes h6, because otherwise white here is threatening to go knight h4, attack this bishop, and it either has to go back to a passive position, or if black goes e6, then knight h4, bishop g6, and it gets traded for a knight, and white has the two bishops advantage. It's nothing too crazy, but it's not too pleasant for most players. Most players prefer bishops, so h6 is the move here. And now, instead of bishop b2, which I would like make this move automatically, we get bishop a3. A very weird position for the bishop. I was like, what the hell? Turns out there have been 13 games up to this point with this move order, and it's actually a decent one. And the first player who has played this with white is Wesley So. He's played this against Anish Giri. And the idea is that if black goes e6, for example, white trades, and black either takes by the king or by the rook. In any case, black loses the castling rights. Of course, black can first go with a knight here and take with a knight, but still, black will waste some time trading these bishops. And also, The point is that after like 97, which happened in the game, castles, e6, we trade, and white's light squared bishop is a little bit better than black's light squared bishop, because black's light squared bishop is positioned on the same color complex as many of black's pawns. So this is one thing, and also if white goes c4 later on and plays on the queen side, sometimes b4, b5, you will see in the game. This bishop looks menacing, but it's looking at thin air. It's not doing too much. So it's not like, it's a subtle thing, but it's not comfortable. Sometimes you can get into an uncomfortable position. So this is the idea of the setup. c4 is what Dean played here. 97, going back, wasting another tempo, but now black can castle. The position is still equal, mind you, because white is not doing anything too ambitious. It's the first move now. c4 is the first move for white to try to fight for the center, and if you tried learning some chess, reading chess books, or going to coaches, having classes, you know that you should fight for the center. At least like try to do this. And now move 8, and on move 8 finally white tries fighting for the center, and even though black wasted some time, black is perfectly fine. So the only drawback of the position is that this bishop is a little bit like maybe without a purpose here, but still it's not a bad piece, of course. So takes, and here another high level move, b4. So white has wasted 2 tempi, first going b3 and then b4, to put the pawn here. Why? Because this is called a classical minority attack, not the minorities you thought about, but this is like a chess term. If black goes here, white often goes here to break up this pawn chain. And why is this the minority attack? Because white has two pawns, A and B pawn here, and black has 1, 2, 3 pawns, A, B, C, on this part of the board. So the minority, 2 pawns, attack 3 pawns and try to break up the structure and create some weaknesses. This is common for the so-called Carlsbad pawn structure. I hope I have not bored you to death at this point, but like, or maybe some of you are bored to death because they know all this. This is obvious. I have subscribers of different levels. I try to make it entertaining and interesting for all of them. I hope I do. By the way, drop a comment if you like my recaps. So here, many of you would play d4, and it's not a bad move per se, but it's not a great move, because this pawn, actually being on d2 instead of d4, has a big advantage. It can go to d3 if the knight jumps here and kick this knight, and it can control the important e4 square, because very often in such structures, knight e4 is what black wants, and we have an option of kicking it. So very important, very subtle but important stuff. So here, first white goes knight d4, attacking the bishop, and putting more pressure here. And then later on, white will probably eventually go b5, but if white goes b5 now, then c5, and this knight is not very well positioned. So there's a different plan here. White first goes queen b3, preparing, putting some pressure over there. Knight e5. Knight e5 is also a very interesting move. Knight e5 is subtle. Knight e5 wants to provoke f4, and then just drop back. This is the engine recommendation. Just drop back. So black had this position, and now we get, sorry about the spoiler, if white goes f4, we have this position. So the same position, but white gained a free move, f4. But it's a weakening, because now the e3 will be weak if white goes d3. This pawn will be too weak. So this is a very, very subtle top-level grandmaster chess, but very entertaining if you try to make sense of it, at least in my opinion. So f4 is the move that white doesn't really want to make, even though it's not a horrible move. Liren here thought for some time and went for actually a better option, a4. He wants to attack, like the minority attack again, as I told you. And it makes sense. Maybe he wants to go a5, gain some space. You remember game 2 with the white pieces? Again, Dean put the pawn on a5. He even was prepared to sack it for initiative. So here you will see a similar motif. So a4, rook c8. Rook c8, maybe not the best move. but maybe it's one of the best moves. Some commentators were saying that a5 is good here, but the problem is that b7 will be hanging here. So there are some complications after c5, for example. If you go here, then d4, and black is better, but you can go here and everything is hanging, and there is, for example, knight d3, queen b7, some crazy lines after this, like white is 2 pawns up, but this knight on d3 is a monster. Reminds me of the Kasparov-Karpov game, where Kasparov dominated with a similar octopus knight, it's called. But we will not go into such deep lines here. You just should know that a5 would be possible if Gukesh was feeling like very risky. But you should consider the match situation also. The game score is tied, 1.5 to 1.5. Gukesh has the black pieces, and he shouldn't object to a draw. He can press with the white pieces in the next game, and probably if this game ends in a draw, Gukesh can say, well, it's a good thing, I made a draw with black, I'm going to try and play for win with white. For Liren, he needs to stabilize. After a painful loss, he has lost game 3. And of course he wants to come back, but it's the recipe for getting tilted and winning several in a row. If you want to crush your opponent at all costs, like you say, I lost the previous game, I need to win this one, I need to win it at all costs. Most of the time people lose with such mentality. It's not W mentality, contrary to what some motivational coaches will tell you. You should be realistic, you should be objective, and if the position is like around equal, if you want to play for a win, you need to take risks. And Din probably decided also to not take excessive risks. This is why he chose this system, this quiet system with like bishop a3, trading the bishop, no crazy attacks. He did not play the king's gambit. Even though it would be fun, I would I would love it. It's my favorite opening, but I digress. So they both are cautiously playing, looking for opportunities, hoping that the opponent will blunder or make a slight inaccuracy, slight mistake, and there will be like an opening, one split second, a moment when you can gain some advantage. This is what's happening, some high-level sumo wrestling stuff. So we will see if anyone allowed this weekend. So after a4 instead of a5, the more ambitious and aggressive choice, but probably not the best. Rook c8 was what Gukesh played. He's clearly preparing to go c5 in future to open up the file. For the rook, a5, same move as in game 2, where Din was playing white. He also pushed the pawn a4, a5, and got an interesting initiative, even though he decided to make a draw in that one. So probably a6 could be possible next, b5 could be possible next. Maybe white will not move any pawns at all because controlling some space is good. Modern engines love this kind of stuff, advancing flank pawns and just controlling some squares, maybe rotating the knight like this, putting the rook on c1. There are many various subtle plans here. But black does not want to stand idly, and this is a good recipe. My coach always tells me, if you are like feeling that the tides are turning in the game, that the opponent is trying to attack you or to suffocate you, you do not stand idly, you do not wait, you do not like pray that it will just go away, closing your eyes. No, you try to initiate counterplay. b6, initiate counterplay. Gukesh does. It's exactly what he likes, and he lacks complications. He's a great calculator. You know, many top players have said that the best strategy for Gukesh is to go for complications, where you need to calculate strong moves like an engine. You should be like a human calculator. You should calculate. And this is where he is the strongest, maybe in the world, or one of the, at least, strongest in the world. For Din is not in his best shape, but he's still an incredibly strong player. And his advantage, it seems to be his understanding of the game. He also used to be, by the way, a very fierce attacking, calculating player, but currently he doesn't look like that. Obviously, he would crush me, but crushing Gukesh is a whole different story. So his advantage, as many top players say, I'm not such a great expert, but they say it, his advantage lies in outplaying Gukesh in complex positional positions where you need to maneuver. You cannot just calculate everything till the end. You need to maneuver, you need to use your understanding of the game. And in game 1, this is exactly what happened. He outplayed, he outmaneuvered Gukesh and got that win. So can he outmaneuver him now? Knight f3. So knight f3 is a way to simplify stuff. Here, he could have gone for complications, actually, Dean, which is probably, he didn't do it for the reasons that I've just given you, because this could have been fun, f4. And if the knight goes back here or here, there are various lines, but for example, knight here, you can take first and go bishop e2, and you have the open file, but there is knight e4 coming, and takes rook c1, for example, is one of the lines. And white is putting pressure, but you need to calculate some lines. And probably Dean decided not to do this. So here after b6, he did not go for bishop a6. Commentators were disappointed during the stream. He just quietly sidestepped with the knight, because the idea of black is to initiate counterplay. c5, go c5, and now the b pawn can take back, and black is doing fine. So he's sidestepping, he's making a prophylactical move, but this allows black to trade down and go d4, a great move. So if you take, of course, black takes, and this pawn is so weak, black is better. So taking on d4 is out of the question. You go knight e2, dropping back. And now black just takes. We take back, because this pawn, if this pawn takes, this falls, so you have to take back like this. And now bishop e4. And now Gukesh is like, I'm just going to trade the pieces, because otherwise this bishop again is not, well, it looks fine, but it's not doing anything special. This bishop, on the other hand, is putting pressure on this pawn. White wants to put the knight here, put the knight here, put the rook here, and attack this pawn and maybe win it. So instead, black wants to simplify. Rook d1 attacks the queen, queen drops back, takes, and we have a completely equal position. So probably at this point, both players are kind of relieved and happy. They're ready to make a draw and go home and chill. And tomorrow, Gukesh will try to play for a win, and Dean will try to use his chances, but at least he did not lose 2 in a row. So this is the mentality of the players by this point. So what happens next? You could have easily predicted what happens next. They start trading. Knight c3. They trade the queen, the knights. They trade the rooks. The pawn is attacked, but it is defended now. Queen c2 attacks the pawn for the second time, but actually it's not even hanging, because black can go g6, and you can blunder with queen c5, because rook d1 check is very unpleasant. It's losing for white, because h2 is taken by the queen, you have to take the rook, but then you lose the queen. So that would have been tragic, but of course they are both very strong players. They would not allow this. Rook d5 overprotects this pawn nonetheless, and now they're just making some moves. f5 is a weird choice by Gukesh, because it's weakening this diagonal, but it doesn't change the evaluation of the position. It's still a dead draw. They're shuffling the pieces, and Dean decides to trade some pawns, pin the rook to the king. Now black has to trade the queens, otherwise g6 is like unnecessary, because now the 7th rank will be vulnerable, and potentially the rook can infiltrate. You don't need to do that. So queen d5 forces the trade of the queens, and the players just repeat moves, and it's a draw. I would have wished to see more fireworks, more complications, but still, as always, it's very enlightening to see such high-level chess. And even if they continue making draws, I will continue making these recaps, and I hope they will be instructive and entertaining for you guys. Don't forget to drop a like and a comment, and see you in the next one. And please write your predictions for the match. For me, it doesn't change. I think Dean is collapsing. What do you think? See you.